The action-packed United Nations General Assembly concludes in a few hours from now. Over the last 1 week, over 100 world leaders defied the COVID-19 fears to meet in person. The session, however, may be ending without speeches by those in government in Myanmar as well as Afghanistan. Afghanistan will neither be represented by those in government, that's the Taliban, nor will the representatives chosen by the former Ashraf Ghani government address the UNGA. The UN representative of Afghanistan's former regime, Ghulam Isaaqzai, who was earlier likely to address the General Assembly, will not be doing so. Afghanistan's name was removed just a short while ago from the United Nations list of speakers for the day. There has been a massive row over Afghanistan's representation at the United Nations. The Taliban challenged the credentials of the ambassador of Afghanistan's former government, which they ousted on the 15th of August. The Taliban earlier wrote a letter to the UN Secretary General, remember, requesting that their representative should be allowed to participate. The letter stated that Ghulam Isaaqzai, who was Afghanistan's UN envoy under the Ghani government, no longer represents the country. The plea was due to be considered by a committee that included the United States, Russia and China, but a UN official told AFP that the meeting did not take place. A United Nations diplomat has said that the Taliban sent their request too late. There have been rival claims for Myanmar's United Nations seat also after a military coup ousted the elected government in February this year. Myanmar's current UN ambassador, Kyaw Moe Tun, was initially expected to address the General Assembly, but a high-level UN diplomat told the news agency AFP that an agreement had been reached between the US, Russia and China over preventing Myanmar's UN ambassador from speaking. The diplomat said that China, Russia and the US had reached an understanding over where Moscow and Beijing will not object to Kyaw Moe Tun remaining in Myanmar's UN seat for the moment, as long as he does not speak during the high-level meeting. The UN spokesperson had said that at this point, Myanmar is not speaking. Many are now seeing this as meddling by US, China and Russia as an attempt to muzzle the Myanmar envoy.
WION-USA Direct from New York with Siddhant Sibbal.
And our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibbal, is now joining us live from New York. Hi, Siddhant. The row over the representation of both Afghanistan and Myanmar at the United Nations General Assembly only intensifying now.
Well, yes, Molly, it has only intensified. In fact, today is the last day of the leaders making their statements. Foreign ministers of several countries like Nepal, France, UAE have been listed. But the surprise today morning was the fact that Afghanistan and Myanmar not being on the list. Now it's been confirmed by the spokesperson of the President of the United Nations General Assembly to WION that both countries have withdrawn. Afghanistan, of course, a key contentious issue over who represents the Afghan government. We know the Credentials Committee of the United Nations has to take a call formally on both Myanmar and Afghanistan. No word from the Credentials Committee, which has 3 permanent members and the rest non-permanent. The 3 permanent members are Russia, US and China. When it comes to Afghanistan, the situation is tricky in terms of recently the Taliban appointed Foreign Minister of Afghanistan sent a letter to United Nations saying that Sohail Shaheen should represent Afghanistan at the United Nations. Now, Sohail Shaheen has been the spokesperson of Taliban in the past as well, giving many interviews, including to WION. But also remember that the Afghan Republic appointed envoy, Ghulam Isaaqzai, has been so far representing the country. We have seen his pictures as well just last week in the United Nations General Assembly Hall when various leaders, including US President Joe Biden, was speaking. But nonetheless, nonetheless a development which in a sense is significant, because it rarely happens. Even countries like North Korea will be speaking today, in fact, by their envoy here in New York, and Afghanistan and Myanmar will not be represented. Both countries have seen turmoil this year, Myanmar seeing the coup and Afghanistan seeing the Taliban takeover.
Absolutely, and we will keep coming back to you for further updates on that front. Siddhant, Sibbal, leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with those inputs. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.